All right, so today we're gonna start looking at the first bot that I created. This is the intent agent or intent manager. So first off, let's kind of get bearings on where we are. So I'm gonna switch to my little doodle over here. So this is how I am seeing intent driven development working. So over here you can see we got a PM right there. That is me. That's the person, right? The person. Your project manager, this is a stakeholder, this is a product owner. This is supposed to be a non-technical person. And so what I want is, if this thing all works out perfectly, I want that PM, that project manager, I want them to interact with an intent agent. And that agent is going to take the intent that is being told to them by the project manager, and turn it into a spec. Now, this is kind of just a subtle difference, but notice that I think from about here on down, this is kind of like spec-driven development. This has been my experience with spec-driven development. When we talk about intent-driven development, what we're really doing is we're starting at this layer and working our way down, right? So just a subtle difference. If you have experience with spec-driven development, the rest of this, I mean, there's lots of ways to do spec-driven development, but this has kind of been, well, this is the way I'm going to go after it. The way I've done it before, I did not include this stuff over here. I've only did this stuff here. And I had decent success with this. But I want to add testing agents and this layer on top with the PM. All right, so anyways, the intent agent, it forms up the initial spec. The spec is then consumed by two sub agents, a testing agent over here, and the testing agent is responsible for looking at essentially the acceptance criteria that has been written into the spec and writing tests to prove that acceptance criteria is passing. Also going on, now notice the independence here. This is critical. This is something I am specifically building in, is this separation of concerns right here. On one side, you've got the testing agent who is responsible for writing the tests. And on the other side, you've got essentially your developers creating code, your architect, and then your dev agents. I should note that anything that's like a little square, like this thing right here, that is my little shorthand for it's an artifact. It's a file or something. In this example, the spec is probably going to be a markdown file. Tests are probably going to be in my code base. I'm using Vite tests, so we're probably using that. Maybe Playwright if we write end-to-end tests, stuff like that. Over here, we end up with code. That's obviously like TypeScript or something like that. All right. So, anyways, back to here. Agent has created the spec. The spec is then passed to the testing agent to write tests, which are over here, probably failing because until this code gets done. On this side, we've got the architect agent. So the architect is going to take the spec and it's going to turn it into tasks. Then those tasks are going to be given to dev agents, and those dev agents are going to ultimately make the code. All right, so that's the high level picture. The key thing I just want to really point out here is that, a human is really only interacting up here with one agent, the intent agent. And then that's going to kick off a whole cascade. And if I can do this in a perfect world, which I don't know if we'll get there, the goal in a perfect world is for all of the rest of this to run automatically. And at the end of the day, when the measure of success is that this code is implemented and these tests are passing. All right, that is our measure of success. All right, so this is a lot of work. I'm not exactly sure how this is all going to come together. This is just a doodle at the beginning. But what I have done is I have successfully, I think, to a point, implemented this first agent, this intent agent. So let's jump into a demo and we'll take a look at that. So let me move my windows around here. All right, so this is not the window I'm supposed to be looking at. Here is my project. All right, so just a quick recap. Let me point you back to where we are here. We're down here. we're looking at, where'd my pen go? We're right here. We're talking about this guy right here, the intent agent. So you can see what we're going to try to accomplish today is this step right here. We're going to be giving the agent an intent, and we hope to get a spec out. All right. So I'll show you what I've got going on here. So this is my project. I'm not going to get too deep into the woods on what this project is. Just some high level notes. This is a very, very basic slide app. And when I say slide app, I'm talking about the context of the Vivid Learning Platform, the VLP. There's going to be other places to learn about what that exactly means. But let me give you a high level goal of this app. When an author is creating an activity, they're creating essentially a slideshow. That's what an activity is. And in that slideshow, they can pick an app to use to render a slide. So when they add a slide, the first thing they do is they pick the app they want to render into that slide. This is one of those apps. This app in particular, it's very simple. We're starting out very simple. This app is focused on, we're going to try to make a simple multiple choice question app. So the goal is going to be the author can say, I want to add the next slide. I want it to be a multiple choice question. And you can imagine what that's going to look like. It's going to be, the author's going to be able to put in a question and some answers, and there's going to be a right answer, and then they're going to save that into the activity, and then when the student or the consumer is consuming that activity, they'll be presented with this and get feedback. All right, so let's start with those intents. That's actually some pretty good intents. So I am putting on my hat as a project manager or product owner or a stakeholder. Now, I am working in VS Code, and obviously a stakeholder is probably not going to be working in VS Code. But this is my baby steps towards the grand goal. I am going to be using a custom agent that I wrote for a custom GitHub agent. I'm just really used to GitHub. And I'm going to be doing my document management primarily inside of VS Code. We're just going to kind of walk through this slowly. And so this is just step one in a very long journey. All right, so let me show you what I've got. In this project, this is just a very simple, we call it it's a forked repo from what we call the base app. All it does is it just says hello world right now. And we're not going to really get into code. We're not talking about code. If you remember from this drawing here, we're not getting into code yet. Code happens way down here. We're just working on the spec. So let me jump back. Okay, so I have an agent called an intent manager. This is a custom agent that I wrote up this morning. And I'm not going to necessarily get into the nuts and bolts of this. I might type up maybe an article, a Substack on this, talking about what I've done in here. But just know we have a custom agent, and we're going to run through it and see how it works. The other thing we have is I've added a folder in the root of my project called intents. This is where I'm going to be keeping all of my intents. And this is like going to become, this is where the bot is intended to work. And specifically, there's this markdown file called intent.md. I do not expect a human to edit this file. I have told the bot up here that this is the bot's responsibility to take care of this file. So the bot is going to use this as, you can imagine over time, the list of intents for an app are going to grow. And they're going to be added, right? Over time, we're going to keep on adding intents to this app as we're building it out. And we may start out with a number. We'll start out with a couple intents here, and then down the road, we'll probably add some more intents. But for now, just imagine like the life cycle of an app and how right now we have a basic idea of what this app wants to be, but we don't know everything. And so this process is built with the intention of evolution and specs changing and stuff like that, classic app stuff. So let's get going. Let's get into it. All right, so what I'm going to do is notice there's no intents in my markdown file. We're starting empty. All right, so I'm going to jump over here. I'm going to make this is, if you're not used to VS Code, this is your agent window right here. I am going to just make sure everything is closed down. And I'm going to start fresh. We've got a brand new context. We're starting new. I'm setting my bot or my agent to my intent manager. This is my custom agent that I just wrote. And let's start. So remember, I am in the final execution of this process we're watching today could hopefully live in a website, right? Let's say there's like a landing page that has been set up for this app we're building. And the product owner, the stakeholder, can show up and go to that website and type in, like, I like this. I want this to do this. Obviously, we're not doing that right now, but that's the goal, is to get there. But let's start here. All right. So thinking about this, what do we think our very first, we have nothing yet. Nothing. What do we want our first intent? When we're thinking about a multiple choice app, let's talk through the intent. I'm going to start simple. Now, let's just do it. I want to allow an author. No, I want to present a multiple choice question to the user. This question will be defined by an author. All right, let's try that out. I am using Claude Sonnet 4.5. I've tried other ones. I really just like Claude Sonnet. It seems good enough. All right, we're kicking off the agent. Let's see what happens. So he's going to run through and think. Now, what should happen is the agent should try. It's going to be clarifying the intent for the first few questions. And to clarify the intent, I've told the agent to ask me questions one at a time. Let's see what happens. Good. This appears to be a new project with no existing intents. Let me start by clarifying the requirements. When you say present a multiple choice question to the user, should the user be able to select one of the answer choices? Yes. Okay. All right. Should the user be able to select only one choice or multiple answer? Let's just say only one. After user selects a choice, should they need to confirm or submit this selection, or should it just be immediately? Immediately. We don't want to do a confirm. After the user makes her selection, should they receive feedback? Yes. I'm just going to say yes. Now, I have tried to build this bot to stay high level. So we should not be getting into code. Okay, based on our discussion, I can now define the intent. Okay, so it's going to define the intent. Intent statement. This app should present author-defined multiple choice questions. It's right in the spec now. The app should present author-defined multiple choice questions where the user can select one answer and immediately see if their selection is correct. Let me create the intent spec for you. Perfect. So now what it's done, I'll take a step out and show you what it's done. But we're going to get back into the bot too. Behind the scenes, this is what has happened. First off, we've added a new line to our intent overview, our intent list, our intent lookup, maybe is the way to think about this. Table of contents? I don't know. And you can see it's given it an ID, presenting author-defined multiple choice questions with a single selection and feedback. And it's also created a path. Also, in the intents folder, it's created a subfolder named the same ID, and it's instantiated the spec file. Now, for this spec file, I did provide it with a template. So in the intents file, we do have a spec template. This is how it knows the format of the spec file. And we want kind of a rigorous format because other bots are going to roll in. Remember, we've got over here, we've got, whoops, we're not doing that. I'm moving the wrong thing. Sorry about that. We got the testing agent's going to read the spec, and the architect agent is going to read the spec. So we kind of want a known format. So that's why we're going to use, we're going to be using this template right here to create the spec. Now the bot is supposed to create a whole bunch of acceptance criteria. That's all this bot is going to end up doing. So let me jump back into our conversation with the bot and say, all right, let's jump back in. Perfect. I've created this specification. Now let me review the acceptance criteria with you one by one. So I specifically instructed the bot to present the acceptance criteria to us one at a time, so that as the stakeholder, we can approve these acceptance criteria and edit them and modify them. Look for holes. Okay, so first one. Here's the ID of it. You're going to notice the ID is not that important, but we're going to track. This is how we're going to track testing to get back to this. But for right now, this one doesn't matter. Now, I've also instructed the bot to use the GWT formatting for acceptance criteria. That is this. It is kind of becoming a standard. I'm not sure I love it yet. We're trying it out. The point of GWT is it kind of bridges the gap between like human language and a little bit more of a very specific language that a bot can use to create testing to make this a testable statement. I also find it a little hard to read, and I kind of wonder if a stakeholder will be into this. So I'm not. We'll think about this. We're letting it ride. Okay, so acceptance criteria number one. Remember, so now think about the organization of this. We have an intent. Some kind of a broad statement about a feature we're looking for, but that's going to be there's going to be multiple acceptance criteria with this intent. But there's a lot of acceptance criteria for an intent. Just keep that in mind. All right, so here we go. Given a multiple choice question has been authored, when the user views the question text and all the answers are displayed. Yeah, that seems like a pretty good acceptance criteria. Yes, that is acceptable. We're going to move on to the next one. Given the user is viewing a multiple choice question, when the user selects an answer choice, the answer choice must be visually marked as selected. Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Yep, we're going to say yes. Given the user has selected an answer choice, when the selection is recorded, the feedback is immediately displayed, indicating whether the answer is correct or incorrect. Yep. Okay, I'm going to write down a couple notes real quick because we're going to try to refine this, but this is what a agent would or a PM would do. I'm going to write down. I've got some ideas in my mind. Retry and custom response. All right, so we'll try to modify. We'll do some more intents in a second. Given the user has selected an answer, when the feedback is displayed, the user cannot change their selection. Yeah, when the feedback is being displayed. Yes, that's good. Okay, so we've got some. I'm writing some notes. We've got our initial intent. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and keep this. We're going to keep rolling. Let's look at the file real quick. Now, that is kind of what the stakeholder would do. This is the project manager. They could be done at this point, right? They don't need to see the insides, but I want to show you guys the insides of what's going on and how we're going to be organizing this. So what you can see is we've created this spec file. And in this spec, we've done this. We've got our ID, and that's what links us to our overall list. Then we've got our description. That was our intent. And then we've got a list of acceptance criteria. And I'm actually going to show this as a preview. It's a little easier to read it. You're going to see in the acceptance criteria, we've got our statement, given, when, then, our GWT statement. The status is initial. Might change that around. I'm not sure I like that. Now, here's the key. There's no tests. I think we should also add tasks into here. There should be tests and there should be tasks. So we'll be refining this. Tests are how we're going to link it to this guy right here. So these artifacts right here, these artifacts that get created, these tests are going to be, oh, I lost my mouse. Hold on a second. Are going to end up listed here. And I put this keyword in here, action required. And that is intended to be a keyword so that when we do jump in, when this agent gets a hold of this spec, they're going to look for that action required tag and know that they need to implement a test for this acceptance criteria. Essentially, we're flagging this thing as, and that's also what initial means, we're flagging this thing as we're ready for the next few steps. We're probably going to end up adding another section called tasks, maybe. And you can see, and that's where these artifacts down here, when the architect agent gets a hold of this thing, it's probably going to, I haven't quite figured out, I haven't really thought through like how we're going to build out tasks. We'll get to there. That's down the road. And then, so tasks will need to be set up, maybe a to-do or something like that. Actually, a to-do in each of these acceptance criteria might be the best, might be a good move. I might end up doing that, adding a to-do in here so that we can have a checklist for the completion of this thing. All right. So we've done that. We've created a number, and also we've associated. We've created an identifier for each of these acceptance criteria. You can see it's essentially the intent identifier with AC acceptance criteria, and then a number after it. And we have a change log at the bottom. All right, so that's where we are right now. While we're here, let's think about a couple more things. All right, I'm actually going to go ahead and commit this. I like this. Let's go ahead and just commit this to Git. This is not that important. I might add a little thing to the bot to add it, but anyways, that's fine. All right, now let's start a new context. Let's start over. I'm going to close everything down. And let's see what happens if we add a new intent. All right, so I got a new context. It's like a new day, right? And now as a project manager, let's see. I got some other things in here. If the user gets the answer wrong, they should be able to retry. All right, let's see what happens. Let this rip. Okay, so now because we already had an intent, it's going to review the previous intents. You notice this. It's finding a little bit of it's thinking there might be a conflict here. So you can see it relates to your previous intent. So notice the beauty of this. We've collected the intents, and the bot is managing this and being like, well, that sounds an awful lot like what we did over here. Let me check that and see if it conflicts. So to clarify your request, when a user gets the answer wrong, should they be able to retry the same question immediately? Not immediately. They, when being shown the answer was incorrect, there should be a button or a button for the user to retry. When this user clicks the retry button, should all their previous selections be cleared so they can make a fresh choice? Yes. Should the retry button only appear when the answer is incorrect? Should it also appear when the answer is correct? I'm going to say no. Oh, actually, not a yes or no question. Only when incorrect. Notice how interactive this is. This is really a nice way to build features out. So we're going to go with that. It's thinking through some more. Now I have a clear understanding. Intent statement. SAP should be allowed to retry. Okay, yes. Oh, interesting. I'm going to check something here. Oh, okay. So this is a fundamental problem. Okay, let's dive into training the bot now. So, what it's done is it has rewritten my original intent. That is a no-no. Okay, so let's jump back into our bot. So this is a good segue into how I create it and how I tune my agents. I keep saying bots. I should be saying agents. So we've gone down a bad path. And this is a good time for a learning experience for the bot, for the agents. All right, so here's how I correct agents. Okay, watch this. Okay, so we've gone down a bad path. Let's correct the agent first. We don't stop. We want to fix it. We want the agent to know they did something wrong and to fix it. Wait! Exclamation point. You should never rewrite existing intents. That is not allowed. That is not allowed. You can, if applicable, you can add acceptance criterias to existing intent specs, or you should otherwise you should create a new spec. No, a new intent. Okay. So now we've corrected it. And I'll show you how we bake that back into the agent at the end of this. You're absolutely right. I reverted the change. Let me make an important description. Now, regarding the retry functionality, should it be a separate spec or I'm going to say separate. It's okay to have separate specs. These specs can be pretty granular, I think. I don't actually know. We'll find out. All right, so it's created the new function. It's created the new spec template. That's cool. I want to see what it named that thing. Did it name it right? Yeah, it did. Okay, good. Let's go back to our thing here. Oops, let's go back to our conversation. Okay, here's the first acceptance criteria. Given the user has selected an incorrect answer, when the feedback is displayed, showing the answer is incorrect, then the retry button is displayed. Does this actually capture this requirement? Yes, perfect. Second acceptance criteria. Given the retry button is displayed when the user clicks the retry button, then previous action is cleared and the question returns to its initial state. Yes, great. It's perfect. And number 3, given the user has selected the correct answer, when the feedback is displayed showing the answer is correct, no retry button is displayed. Perfect. Nice. Okay. That's good. Now, we've got a new spec. Okay, here's how we train the bot to be better next time. This is how we learn from the mistakes. And when you first make an agent or a prompt or anything like this, you're going to find the first couple times it kind of sucks. And then if you do this process a couple times, it just keeps getting better and better. So, okay, the spec is great. Let's give it some positive reinforcement. Nice job. However, you made a critical error during this process. Here's my special words I use, review our conversation and summarize what you did wrong. It's very, very finger pointy, isn't it? I would feel bad saying this to a real person. That's my own hang-ups. But let's do it. You're right. Here's the critical error. Okay, so it's identified it and it's right. Like I do this step to make sure that when it reviews the conversation, it figures out the problems that it had. And then the next step is to come over here and say, please update the agent instructions in #intent manager agent so that this does not happen again. Now this is the trick. This is the secret sauce so I don't know. I don't think I made it up. People know this. But using the bot to review what it did wrong, and then using the bot to update its instructions so that it doesn't happen again. So now you can see up here in my GitHub agents, my intent manager, look at this. Critical rule. It's added stuff in here to do this right, to hopefully avoid that in the future. All right, let's keep that. Let's move on. I'm going to say go ahead and commit all of this to Git. Now, let's take a look at our file structure real quick. We've added another line to our intents. We have added another intent folder with a spec file in it, and that's great. All right, moving on. So that was a retry. Let's add another one. So let's start a fresh conversation here. What else do we want to do? When an author configures a question, wait, I should write this down. An author should be allowed to define the question and responses and answers. This needs to persist. This needs to be saved. That's probably that persist word is saved. Can be displayed to the user later. I'm going to say student later. Okay, so we're adding in persistence. So again, it's reviewing the intents. It's reading. Look at that. It read the specs. So it's asking me to clarify, when you say define the question and answer, do you mean the author should create the content with the app itself through some kind of editing interface? Yes. They should create content in the app itself. Okay, what specific pieces of information should the author be able to define for each question? the question text as well as a number of answers. Okay. For the answer choice, what should the author be able, the text to display, and if it is correct. Should only one answer be marked as correct? Multiple. Let's just say multiple. I like when multiple answers could be correct. Yeah. So when you say multiple answers can be correct, you mean the author can mark multiple answers as correct, but students can only select one answer? Yes. Or should a student be able to select multiple answers? The first one. There you go. Save it. What happens when the author finishes creating? Okay. Oh, good. It made a new intent. I was curious to see if it would try to add this to the previous intent or move on. Perfect. I have enough information to create the intent. Here's the intent statement I have formulated. The app should allow the author to create and save multiple choice questions by defining question text, answer choices, and which answers are correct. I keep thinking of more features. So we've done retry. We've got persistence. We've got authoring. I want to add a number of answers. And custom responses are the last two things we want to add in. Given the author, okay, here's the acceptance criteria for this one. Given an author is using the app, when an author accesses the authoring interface, the author can enter the question text. Yes. Maybe even rich text. Given an author has created the question, when an author adds answer choices, then the author can define the text for each answer choice. Yes, that's great. Third one, acceptance criteria. Given an author is defining the answer choice, when an author marks the answer as correct, answers are correct, then the author can mark one or more answers as correct. Yes. Great. Fourth acceptance criteria. Given an author has defined the question text, the answer choices, and the correct answer, when the author saves the questions, the question content is persisted so it can be displayed to the student later. Yes, that's great. Okay, I think we're going to kind of wrap this up. As you can see, it's working, I think, pretty well. It's creating spec files. We created 3 spec files, and more importantly, it's created some good acceptance criteria. Now you can imagine how this is going to change over time. You know, like what are we going to do with bugs? I think a good question is, where does UI styling fit into this stuff? And I don't know the answer to these questions. There's still a lot of unknowns here, but we've got intents being turned into acceptance criteria, and that is already a very useful feature. Even if we have to do this manually, like I'm trying to think of my next steps right now. Well, I know what the next steps are. The next steps are, first off, I'm going to have to manually figure out how I would test all of these acceptance criteria. And I'm going to probably just use what we would call domain-driven domain integration test, and maybe some Playwright end-to-end tests. Actually, Playwright end-to-end test might be the best move on this. And then we also have to kick this over to the architect, which is another agent I'll have to write. And that architect will take care of busting this down. And actually, the architect might need to happen before the tester happens. I don't know this stuff yet. We're still working this out, but I'll be working on that next. But what I can say is I'm very pleased with what's going on right now. Some other future things we're going to have to deal with, bugs. I can imagine bugs are kind of like treated, I don't know, differently. It's not like the intent has changed. It's just there's been a bug. So there'll be a new workflow when bugs show up. I have a feeling like style and design and stuff is going to be a separate workflow because style doesn't really change intent. Like intent is still there. You can have issues with the style, but the intent has not changed. So it feels like style might be a completely separate workflow. I don't know, but we'll be working that part out next or soon. So anyways, I'm going to continue to add some responses. Actually, I might just move on. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this and keep on clicking.